silly, ridiculous, a waste of time. They didn't want that's why they were so successful. That's why they got away with it.
I made a living in very dangerous.
This is really an integrated blended society. Dianne Andrews in black and white.
Welcome to Dianne Andrews in Black and White, and I'm your host, Dianne Andrews. Thanks for watching us in one of our 5 million homes in Louisiana, Mississippi, or Texas, or whether you're watching us on YouTube and our YouTube channel all over the world. I was given a name of a celebrity that people thought would be a very good interview, and a woman who's doing a lot of humanitarian things in the world, and they told me her name. It didn't ring a bell. She's been an actress, a comedian, a poet, you name it, she's done it. She was in Die Hard with a Vengeance. She's been in How Stella Got Her Groove Back. What's Love got to do with it? She was Tina Turner's sister. She played that in that movie. And I said, oh yeah, and I saw a picture. I said, I know who that is. And she's back now, and she's better than ever. I will give you a hint. Her middle name is Yvonne. So we're going to take a little break, and you go Google her if you don't know who she is by now. Come on back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White with our celebrity guest.
Oh my God, are you Dianne Andrews?
Yes, I am.
Hi, I'm Donald. I love your show in Black and White.
Oh, and you have my books. You have all three. Third Man Out, my fiction, Gumbo for the Heart, where 25 individuals. Oh my God, you have the latest one. I just put this out a month ago.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Do you enjoy them?
I do.
Oh, thank you
Can
for
I
being
please have
such
an
a
autograph?
Oh, sure. To Donald who?
Donald Spears.
Okay, Donald.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for keep on watching Dianne Andrews in Black and White.
Yvonne, what do you think of this? Isn't that the ring Clark gave you in high school? Mm-hmm. I thought it might make him feel good if I were to wear it. You know, we have never actually broke up.
Becky, why don't you put on your cheerleading outfit and go all the way back?
I know it's silly. It's just that when I'm with Clark, I feel like I'm 18.
Ooh, can I borrow him for one night? I want to feel 18 again.
BB, you gonna need to book a whole month then.
Greetings, fellow citizens.
Welcome back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. And as you can see, sitting next to me, if you didn't Google her, you see who she is, or if you knew after I gave you the hint, the middle name Yvonne, is Phyllis Yvonne Stickney. I am so pleased to have her, not just the breadth of her entertainment work, but the humanitarian causes that she's worked on that we're going to touch on a little bit today. But being back the 25th anniversary of Essence magazine, yes, there were only 200 African American women named who have changed our world, yes, and you were one. Tell us, how did that feel?
It was an honor. It was a surprise because no one knew that was being done, yeah, and so when it came out, when they called me to come and do the photo shooting for the photographs in the layout. Thank you. I was surprised. I was honored, humbled, because it was such 200 African American women, right, who've changed the world, right, and it was the comedy. It was my humor. Right. It was through the humor and how I try to utilize it as a messenger and as a healing agent, if you will. So it was exciting, but not as exciting as it is the more mature I become. Right. Then it was exciting because it was Essence. We know that was a premier magazine for women of color. Right. And to be included, always to be recognized, is an honor and special. But because
with people like Oprah Winfrey were in that, yes, and Maya Angelou, yes, Holly Berry's in there, yes, I think. It's a beautiful, beautiful women. It's a beautiful layout. In fact, I have the book on my dining room table, on my table at home. And you also, you know, we mentioned some of the movies you've done, some of the sitcoms you've been in, but also you took a 10-year sabbatical to work on a marriage and to try to have a child.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have a normal life. Yeah. You know, at some point you want a normal life, or what you think is normal. Right. And so I met a man that actually worked as an acrobat. He didn't speak English, was not his first language, and so our connection was something that I thought was very spiritual, right, because it was based on just that attraction and just communicating and wanting to communicate. He had no idea who I was or what I did, and I'd been a meal ticket in a couple of situations, so I didn't want to be a meal ticket.
You know, that can happen to successful women.
And so, yeah, I took a moment to try and just see what that was, what love was, what being a wife as opposed to being the professional person.
Right.
He was also an artist, and so I supported his career for a while. That took me away from my career, and when I realized that I was a little too far and I still had work that was left for me to do, so I came back and began to write. I did a couple of things in addition to that, but writing was what really kept me involved, kept me active, and kept me able to have a commentary about things that I knew people really didn't know and that might be curious about. Because I've always done live shows, even though I wasn't always in film or always in television. Throughout those 10 years, I still found a way to do my live performances, which was my voice, and from a writer's workshop that I produced in Harlem, and that kept me writing. And so I looked up and I had written 2 books, pretty much. Both of them were nonfiction, and then 2 fiction. And one of them dealt
Any
with
screenplays on the way? Or
Oh, I've always written screenplays. I'm a writer. I say
Yes.
ideas are us.
Yes.
You know, my brother is also an artist. but
Timothy is his name,
Timothy
yes.
Stickney. He was on
Yeah.
One Life to Live for 13 years
Yeah.
playing R.J. Gannon.
Right.
But he's an amazing writer as well.
Were your parents in the arts? Is
Not
that
at
where
all.
this came from?
Not at all. My father was the humanitarian.
Yeah. Why YMCA? I thought maybe your mother.
YMCA. No,
arts.
mother, homemaker, brilliant mind,
Yeah.
the one that kept the books right, so that
Right.
you know, even though we never felt that we were
Poor, underprivileged.
underprivileged. Well,
Yeah.
we weren't. We were often the only ones. We lived in the
Yes.
suburbs.
Yeah.
So my experience was a lot different than a lot of my peers. I actually, at that time, we had 2-parent homes.
Right.
So I grew up in a 2-parent home. My parents are my parents. All my sisters and brothers have the same mother and father.
Right.
I didn't realize how unique that was.
Yes. And even getting more unique today.
And getting more unique today. And that's my humanitarian work. The sabbatical for me gave me an opportunity to talk about things that people, there was once a woman in San Diego, actually, Lisa Nichols had an event. I was invited. It was a global leadership conference. And at that conference, there was a young woman who wanted to know where I'd been and what I'd done for those years that they hadn't seen me on
Right.
camera.
Right.
I took a sabbatical because of a personal experience and someone in my life that really would not let me have my life, would not let me be independent in my life. And I often say it was like being a hostage in my own life, because I had done my television, my film, my stage, my comedy, and was ready to take my place. And then this personal, it was almost, it was an obsession. And I didn't know exactly how to navigate. So I just sat down rather than being asked to leave. But I wrote about it. After this young woman came to me and said, you know, there are 225 pages of people having a conversation that you don't want to have. Maybe you should tell your story. And when I realized that that was the truth, I started writing about it and realized that people like Denzel Washington were associates and people that I worked with, and kind of even before the film, we all came from the Black theater experience.
Because you worked in New York first when you left the
Yes.
University of Delaware, where you were teaching drama.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes, through a CETA
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
Those
yeah.
of us who are of a certain age
Yes.
remember the CETA programs. And as a result, I was able to be an associate in the drama department. And that was sort of what fueled me to take a chance and go to New York. And so one night, I found myself hiding in the bathroom on the Amtrak train and ended up in New York. I met Ed Bullins, who was conducting a writer's workshop. Writing was always a vehicle for me, even as a young girl. It was my way to tell it to the page. I'd talk about whatever my issues were. And I wasn't comfortable enough
Did you
to
show that? Was it a diary, or was it something you showed to other people, your writing?
No, it was nothing that I showed. It was something that I shared really with myself. It really wasn't something I was ready to share. But the writing of this book was because it's called Invisible Celebrity.
Yeah. Tell us about that. And we want you to
Invisible
read a few
Celebrity.
minutes from that book today before we close this out. Is that good?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll try to sort of, or give you the backdrop.
Yeah.
I really decided, because I thought it was too painful to just go through the day by day, the chronological order.
Yeah.
So one day after this experience in San Diego, I just picked up the computer and I started telling the story. And the first thing that came was I was not sad when he died. I was finally relieved that I didn't have to worry about.
Now, this is not the ex-husband. This is someone else.
Right, this is someone else.
Oh, okay. All right.
This is someone else.
Okay.
This is someone who everyone thought I was married to because of his presence, looming presence in my life, but we were never married. And that created a lot of issues for me. A lot of issues because of his political stance, because of his social stance. And so there were things that I could not support. But one day, at a screening of a movie, Cool Runnings, starring one of my dear friends, I submitted. And so this book talks about what that submission was like, what it was like showing up at places where you would look over there and there would be curtains and then a pair of shoes. And I'm like, well, curtains don't have feet. He'd be standing in the curtains. Or going to the Apollo one evening.
Now, you were almost the first Apollo.
I was.
Before Sinbad,
Before Sinbad, before Kim Coles, before all of them. I really was largely responsible for selling it to network television, the show itself.
Comedy has always been, is it your first love in entertainment, or?
It's just who my parents and my sisters and brothers live with. Because I was that middle child.
You're that girl.
I was that middle child that had to find my own voice.
Yeah.
So mine was humor.
Now, where was Timothy in the order?
Timothy is after, he's 2 behind me.
Oh, okay.
He's 2
How many
behind
children?
me.
5?
There's 5, 2 girls
5.
and 3 boys. 2 of us are in the arts as a profession, and 3 are still professional, but not necessarily in the arts.
Well, let's hear a little. I want to hear about it, some from Invisible Celebrity, and so does our audience.
Oh,
well, I think we have about 3 minutes left.
Let's see what we can find. Let's see. I knew very well as a child, my family moved to an average of every 2 years because of my father's work with the YMCA. As a result of the frequent locations, I was a quick study, articulate, adapted to new environments and people, and possessed a natural gift and ability. I'd never received reviews for any of my performance, even as early as 1981, but I had promise. If all else failed, I did have a plan B. I was an intern at the Institute of New Cinema Artists, participating in the television and film production training program. It was the Institute of New Cinema Artists when I was introduced to broadcast management. Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee were our patron saints. A theater above 125th Street, New Heritage Theater, under the tutelage of Roger Furman. I was guided to the hands of Ossie and Ruby, the first 2 always to buy tickets to our shows. Ruby and Ossie would be staples in my life for the rest of my career. One day, casting call for Malcolm X. As was usual, this was a duality. Not only would I interview or audition for Honey, I would also interview for the role of Betty Shabazz. It was me and Angela Bassett once again. She or I would be Betty Shabazz. Well, as history now stands, I was Honey, the cocktail waitress that we meet Malcolm through the eyes of Honey. Well, little did the world know that around the set, like a shark, was Butch, we'll call him, circling the set. He wanted to be on the set more than he wanted to be anywhere. And for me, there was nothing worse than him coming to the set, marrying 2 worlds.
Now, this is the person that you talked about, the shoes under the curtains. Was he violent with you? Sexual harassment, all of the sexual violence?
It was just
intimidation?
Intimidation.
Okay.
And I always say, I say it now laughingly, I'm not a punk. So it wasn't, I didn't take any beatings, but it was just the fact that here I was before the world. Here I was, one of the 200 African-American women who changed the world. Here I was,
Arkansas Hall of Fame.
Hall of Famer, and I could not navigate this person out of my life.
Do you think it was a test from spirituality?
Oh yes. What has come from that experience, not only the writing that came from that experience, but the strength that came from that experience, the clarity that came from that experience. Because I had to, in front of everybody, things were going on.
Right.
There was I tell in the book, the night that I was on the radio and he proposed, knowing that I wasn't going to say yes because I'd spoken to him for hours prior to that. But getting on national radio and proposing anyway, thinking that what was going to happen. So it was very challenging because it was...
He played mind games, a lot of them.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
But here I was trying to navigate through Hollywood on its own terms, and then having this person who would make it more difficult. But there were wonderful times. There were people like Malik Yoba that I talk about in the book, Friends, that Tommy Davidson, who that night was harassed by this individual, let's say, Tiny Lister, people who now I can tell them what was going on, why I just sort of disappeared, or why, you know, I would always say, oh, please ask this gentleman before I would embrace or whatever. But
well, you mentioned Angela Bassett, and you went up, and we're going to have to close it off after that, but you were in 2 movies that I know of, with her, 3 really, Malcolm, How Stella Got a Groove, but were you always going against the lead, for the lead part, usually?
Most of the time. It was Whoopi and Phyllis for Ghost. I was up for the role of Ghost.
Oh, wow.
I was up for the role of
I
Delilah. I love
Ghost, yeah.
And, you know, it would often, I would be cast, and then I would get a call maybe a month later and going, I've got some news for you, Phyllis. I go, well, what's the news? Whoopi wants to play the role of so-and-so.
So Whoopi had first.
Yeah, at that time.
Yeah.
But we're back.
We're back. And the name of this show is Back and Better Than Ever.
That's right.
Phyllis Stickney is Back and Better Than Ever is the name of this show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I really believe you're better than ever, and you'll be bigger than ever, because you were a big one, and you still are.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Phyllis Stickney.
Thank you.
Have some very interesting guests. If you keep up with Dianne Andrews in Black and White, you'll know that I've done 2 shows already on the Silver Dollar Group of the Klan. They were the most heinous group of the Klan, and they were only 15 men who caused a lot of havoc and death and destruction in the early 1960s. Okay. I want someone to come in who has something to say to you about the bombing of your grandmother's house, which Sonny Taylor was one of the people purportedly to be part of the mechanism that did not go off, that saved the people from the Congress of Racial Equality and saved your life that night, along with your grandmother, Miss Kathleen.
Okay.
Come on, Deborah. I've done a show before with Deborah Taylor also. Both of you are true heroes.
Hi. How are you?
They've never met before. Her father attempted to bomb his house and kill him. And Deborah is the person who went to the cold case files to make sure that there was some resolution and some solace for you people, and to try to help find the bodies of the people that her father was purportedly one of the murderers of the 9 people who were killed. You are still a minority in the world. When we talk about almost 7 billion people, you're 1/7 of the world, which is a large population. But do you think these other religions, the Christianity, the Nation of Islam, Hindu has almost 900 million people, which is started in Asia, and that is the oldest religion. Buddhism has as many people as we do in America. 376 million are Buddhist. So do you think everyone else is wrong, or how do you look at that? Dr. Greason's house, I mentioned to you when I started October, Halloween party he had, that he used to have every year. He is now not with us anymore. And you came up, you were just talking about, I'm going to be an astronaut, I want to do this, and I'm going to do that. And I remembered your bubbly personality from then. Now, she speaks 4 languages. She attends the Baton Rouge International School, so we have to give the school credit, which is a wonderful school here, from what I've heard here in Baton Rouge. And she speaks 4 languages: Chinese, English, French, and Spanish, correct? Correct. I can only speak English, so hey, right out there, you outdid me right away. But I'm out in the community because of this very serious situation in Baton Rouge and around the country. Violence does not beget violence. Alton Sterling, a man who was here at Triple S convenience store owned by Abdullah Muflai, was shot down and killed by 2 Baton Rouge police officers. Now, I'm not saying who was right or wrong, but I'm just saying what happened in this situation. Have you ever seen him carry a gun and visibly open in the public, harming anyone?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. He only started carrying a gun for his protection because he had his friends that also sell CDs in different locations had gotten robbed the past couple of days, and he thought he might need something to protect himself.
And you knew he carried this gun because he told you that he carried it, and it was no problem.
It was no problem. It was no problem because I've never had a problem with him. I've never had any kind of any kind of problems with him having like him and somebody else, any other customers. He was well known out here. Everybody knew him. He was a very friendly person to the customers. He never gave me a problem to where I needed to have him, you know, removed off the property or anything.
Because you had to give him permission to sell in front of your store, and you did. Now, that day when the police showed up, did they park right here in the parking lot?
Yes, they parked in the parking lot. There was also 3 cars that were in front of them. But at the time I got outside to see what was going on, he was already being slammed on top of a car, and then they tasered him and tackled him onto another vehicle, and that's when they pinned him on the floor.
Let me ask you a question. What church are you a member of?
What church am I a member of? I'm a member of many churches.
What church
many
are
churches,
you
many churches, many
and
churches.
there's not a problem.
Many
when
churches.
People start talking about African American churches and what they do and what they
where
don't
are
do, I'm not
where are our
finished.
educational? Where are our
Silky, let's let him finish. Wait a minute, Silky, let's let him finish.
Okay,
when
go ahead.
And then you go back.
Talking about, especially African American people, start talking about what African American churches do and don't do. You are proof positive that most of those people say that are not in no particular church. They're not working in any particular church program, but rather they'll sit on the sideline and try to dictate what a church is or is not doing. So at the end of the day, brother, it takes a village to raise
Okay,
children.
let's go back to Silky. Now, Silky, what do you have to say?
You cannot point out a Christian academy that we have in our communities, but we send our kids to other Christian academies. And look at his own morals when he said about his program. He said, we teach them how to respect the neighbors, we teach them how to respect the elderly. Until you teach them to respect the creator, which is God, then they'll never respect what's been created.
Common sense
No, there ain't no common sense in this. This is real life.
If a
that's
kid,
the problem.
Let him finish.
That's the problem. That's the problem. And look, mannerism, because what he asked me, oh, please don't cut me off. But then you cut me off because listen at me.
But I told him let you finish.
No,
could you pass me that pen down there? That does not allow check washing is the Uniball jail pen, black. That's what I read, and that's what we did. Last night, we took a check that I wrote, and I wrote part of it in non-Uniball. And if they, I don't know how close y'all can zoom into this. And then you can see where I wrote in the Uniball, and it stayed in the acetone. This part is almost faded. If we had let it stay a little longer, it would have. But the black with the Uniball is very vivid with the check. You can see how, so the acetone is what washes.
The college campus was promised them stuff as far as a musical and a performing career that went to stripping, to a quote of how many people she was going to have sex with every day.
And that happens to a lot of teenagers, right? They think they're going to some glamorous life, you know, 17, 18, 19, 20. College students are that about, and oh, you're beautiful, which all women love to hear. And so they lure them in and they lie. To them, and then
and you also have kind of the sex tape promise that goes around, the Kim Kardashian model, I guess, because we know of cases where Yangs would send out internet messages that will help make this sex tape for you, and you'll be famous like Kim Kardashian. And the thing was, go from a stylist to being married to a rapper and a television celebrity. So I think.
How do we make people more aware, you know, at 17, 18, 19, not to believe this? Saying that, let's talk about how the different forms or different ways you can use heroin. Because I read, and you all definitely know better than me, with that first high, you're always trying to ascertain it again, and it never comes back because you need more and more drugs for it to come to that euphoric feeling that is hitting that neurotransmitter in the brain. And you never get it again, right?
Never.
And you're always searching for that feeling.
Always.
And then your liver's collapsing. And
with heroin too, you build up you know, a habit, and after a while you're using just not get sick. You're not even really getting high.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you don't have it physically, your body is craving it because it becomes addiction.
Yeah.
Is there something, now we talk about malware, spyware, and all these different wares, like the Norton systems, the McAfee's, the PC watchdogs. Now, what I read something, because I'm a programmer, I was a programmer, I told you, at the Houston Space Center for IBM when we had the space shuttle, and I did a similar language coding. I can read a dump, 0 and 1, the binary system, which people at high-level language don't understand all of that. But if any system can be written, a program can be broken. That's just the bottom line. There's always somebody who can find a way, a gate into that system to do what they want to and bring that system down or create another system. Today I have 7 gentlemen here with me who have come in from Houston, Texas. They are members of the People's New Black Panther Party. And they are here not to promote violence. I want to start off with you. Tell me what your theme is, how you are different from the original Black Panther Party, and do you promote violence?
Well, like you said before, we are the People's New Black Panther Party. And in layman terms, you know, you have the Democratic Party, you have the Republican Party, and you have the People's New Black Panther Party, which is a political party for blacks here in America.
Now, when you say it's for blacks, tell me what that means. What do you do for blacks?
Well, we educate our people. We get them to understand. We try to wake up their political consciousness.
You're going to stick me, and then I'll have it on during the close. Let's stick me real quick before we take a little break here for a moment.
Just to show people that it's not.
Now, I've had this before, so yeah, it's not an awful experience.
So we wipe the points with a little alcohol, just to prep. And the needles themselves.
If I can do it, you can do it, you all. Single use. I didn't even feel it.
So that's it.
You see it? Y'all can see it out there. It's not that bad. Now, you will have more than one needle on you, I can guarantee you.
This is strong hand right here.
Right,
so
this is my
that's
strong
the one
hand.
that's going to hurt him. You know, the one he don't see.
The one with the ring on it. Maybe that'll get him in the nose, right? Hit him with the ring, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, just punch my hand right here.
And again, I have to commend, and I want to thank Melissa X for being with me today. Melissa X is HIV positive. And, you know, I shake a lot of my people's hands and I hug a lot of my guests. But I'd done a little survey and I told her, I'd asked people, would you, if you knew someone was HIV positive, would you shake their hand? And a lot of people have told me no. And I asked, would you hug them? They said, definitely.
Remain the same.
Yeah. So now what happens?
No effect on
so
the
I
society.
could be a billionaire like Donald Trump, businessman. Where does he fit?
Yeah, he's a Shudra class.
He's still a Sudra, the lowest.
No, Vaishya class.
Vaishya, next to Sudra, the next to the lowest.
Next to the lowest.
As a businessman.
Yeah.
And if he becomes president, where does he move to?
He moves to the higher classes.
But not Brahman, just the next one.
He would become
Kshatriya, because he's a warrior, he's a king.
Mm-hmm.
He's a warrior, he's a king.
Right.
You know, so now think about the responsibilities that you get when you become a king.
Who developed this caste system?
Good question. May I answer that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, good.
He knows more about that.
Okay.
In the scriptures, and the scriptures, when we talk about
Are you
Indian
Christian or Hindu? You all are Hindu, right?
We both are Hindus.
Both
Now,
Hindus, okay.
let me tell you now, when you say Hindu, it's like dumbing down.
That's another subject.
Oh, okay, we're not getting, I'm doing religion next week. I'm not doing religion.
That's why they were so successful. That's why they got away.
I'm surprised they didn't go